I'm reading One Piece for the first time, and I just got to the time skip. Let's talk about it. All right, so for anyone officially keeping up, I finished Marineford, and that led me directly into the post-war arc and then to the return to Sabaody arc, which is where this infamous time skip happens. And I don't know why I said infamous, but really I knew there was a time skip in One Piece because I'd heard people say like, "Oh, post time skip, pre time skip," but I never knew when it happened or what they meant. But here we are, right? And both of these arcs were very, very short, so I figured let's go ahead and make a video talking about these two before I get too in depth. Because I heard Fishman Island is like the next long proper arc, like 50 something chapters. So I thought if I tried to do post-war Sabaody and Fishman in one video, it would have been too much. So this video will probably be pretty short because these two mini arcs were short, but let's just talk about it, right? And first things first, the post-war arc was just largely a flashback focusing on Ace and also Luffy and Sabo, a third brother. I had no idea. So this was a cool little arc, and just way for Oda to twist the knife after Ace's death because Ace didn't really get that much development in the story other than that, like, oh, he's Luffy's brother and he has a really cool devil fruit, right? But no, it was already emotional, it was already painful, and he just made it 10 times worse by actually like developing this character further. So I really enjoyed this. I liked getting to know Ace a little bit more, seeing the kind of childhood he had, getting to see the childhood Luffy had, which is kind of the first time we're really seeing that as well. And just the way they came together, kind of this grouping of outcasts and social misfits, right? And I actually really enjoyed Sabo too because he was a misfit alongside them, but kind of from a completely different slice of life, right? Because he was one of these royals, one of these elites, not a celestial dragon, but just I can't remember the name of the town off the top of my head, but just from wherever they're from, like he was from the other side of the wall, right? He had the good life, but it's not the life he wanted. And even as a kid, he could recognize just the vast cruelty and injustice in the society as they had it set up. And he's like, wait, this is wrong. And so, he didn't want to be a part of that and thus went to ride with his homies, right? So I really love that. And by the way, no shot he's dead, okay? I'm back to being fully on Oda is never going to kill a character, except for Ace here, apparently. But we got another kind of quasi off-screen death with this ship blowing up. We didn't see a body. We don't have a fully emotional death scene like with Ace. No shot he's dead. So I can't wait to see what comes of this, especially because in his little backstory, they inserted that like redheaded stepchild who is like who his parents like actually love and are grooming to be like the leader of their family because Sabo wants no part of it, right? So we know that's coming back around. So I can't wait to see, I guess I'm assuming he probably goes on to be a pirate and how, that's going to interact with his little stepbrother later on in the story. And also, maybe we could have like a triumphant moment where Luffy, who now thinks both of his brothers are dead, actually gets to meet one of them again. And kind of maybe that could be something that will lift Luffy's spirits after being so down in the dumps. And that's the other thing this arc addressed, this mini arc, was Luffy wrestling with his grief and his despair after literally being catapulted to the lowest moment of his life, losing his crew and then losing his brother, right? So I actually loved getting to see kind of Jinbei help bring him out of that a little bit. And then, of course, Rayleigh training him on this island. And finally, we discovering what haki is. This has been, such a question for me for so long because it's such a buzzword when people are talking about One Piece and I've never understood it. But now I finally know. We got 3 types, okay? And the future sight version, which I can't remember what it's called, but that is what freaking Enel was using all the way back in Skypiea when he called it mantra. So that's really interesting. And I'm wondering, is that just a cultural thing where this part of the world refers to it as haki, that part of the world refers to it as mantra, or what's going on there? But that's how you can kind of anticipate what your enemies are going to do, which we also saw, I think, Boa Hancock's sisters use that against Luffy in their fight. So that's finally been explained. And then we have, I believe it's called armament haki, which basically just buffs you. You get stronger, you get more defensive, boom, 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 right? But then we have the rarest strongest form of haki, Conqueror's Haki, which is basically just aura farming personified, right? And Luffy's got this. We know that Ace had this. Shanks has this because I know we've seen him knock people out. I think Whitebeard had it. I don't know if we ever saw Whitebeard use it, but I'm assuming he had it. I mean, clearly Roger must have had it. But yeah, you basically just out aura people and knock them unconscious. I don't know if there are further uses of it beyond just that specific thing. There probably are, which I can't wait to see. But yeah, Luffy's got all three. And so he and the rest of his crew are going to spend 2 years training before they all meet back up. And I love the little secret message he gave to all of the crew members. And I love how I think all of them but one picked up on it immediately. And I can't remember who didn't get it at first. It's not important. But yeah, and then we got a little bit of an adventure with each of the crewmates as they kind of have their 2-year training arc alongside Luffy. So getting to see all of those little mini adventures was really fun. And then we get to see a brand new design for each of the Straw Hats. Everybody had a little bit of a glow up after this 2-year time jump, and I do really dig Luffy's scars across his chest. Zoro's missing an eye now all of a sudden. We haven't figured out why that happened yet, but I'm very intrigued. And on the whole, I do like the time skip new designs, but I just don't think I've had enough time with them yet. Like, I think I've had like 10 chapters with these new designs after being 600 deep on the old design. So part of me was like, oh, I kind of miss what I've grown used to, but I do like these, and I do think when I spend more time with them, they'll only grow on me. But yeah, like I said, everyone kind of had an adventure that really leveled them up, which is so interesting to me because Kuma is the one that sent all of these people to all of those places, right? Which is so interesting because that means he had like a pretty in-depth understanding of all of the Straw Hats. Now, unless I'm just not supposed to read into that, and that's just kind of a like, it's a shonen manga type of thing, but I think I am supposed to read into that. Because, you know, thus far, things have largely been very intentional with Oda. So, like, the fact that he sends Zoro to Mihawk, the fact that he sends Nami to that weather island, and her whole thing is, like, weather combat, right? Usopp to the land of the beasts where there's that crazy old warrior that teaches him stuff. You know, we could go on and on. There's something like that for everyone. Frankie with Vegapunk, right? So how much did Kuma know about them, and why did he know so much about Luffy's crew in particular? I do know that Kuma was part of the revolutionaries, worked with Dragon and with Ivankov. So but even that being the case, you know, it's not as if Dragon and Ivankov knew about all of the Straw Hats on such a personal level, right? And so I guess maybe since Kuma was sent in particular to like destroy and disrupt the Straw Hats, maybe he like did some research on them. But in any case, I just thought it was interesting, and shout out Kuma because he's like largely responsible for everyone leveling up the way they did. But yeah, loved all of this. There are a few of these in particular I want to talk about, though. Again, Zoro training with Mihawk is awesome. But not too much to delve into there, I don't think, other than why his eye is missing. Frankie is one of the most interesting to me because Vegapunk is that doctor that was referred to recently. I don't know if it was Marineford or before, but we find out that he has technology that's like 500 years more advanced than the current society, which is something I've already talked about, so I won't launch into that again, but that's curious, right? And so Frankie, this mechanical genius, is now getting to study Vegapunk's research. So bro obviously is going to be going crazy with it, but what else did he learn, right? Could he have learned any of the grander secrets of the world based on Vegapunk's knowledge? And I also thought it was interesting the way that it was kind of presented as a gag, but Frankie presses the big red button that explodes the lab, but it's like a fake lab, and that's what allows him to discover then the real lab. And the button was like, oh, don't press, like this is bad, like pirates, but really it needed to be pressed. So in a way, Vegapunk was searching for a pirate, and assuming this guy works for the government, does that mean that Vegapunk is kind of like maybe not willingly working for the government and like wants someone to like find his research and kind of maybe do something about it? I don't know. That was very interesting. And then the other Straw Hat adventure that interested me the most was Robin's, because she basically met up with the revolutionaries, right? I'm assuming Luffy's dad's people, but we don't actually get to see her meet Luffy's dad, at least not yet. But that seems prime for all sorts of reveals. And one thing in particular really stood out to me, and that was when she was kind of being, I guess, escorted to the revolutionaries. They passed by this construction site that's over 300 years old, because there's this bridge that's being built and it's still being built. Like, it's not even finished, and this thing has been under construction for hundreds of years. And Robin even says, like, why are they building this bridge? And I'm wondering, why are they building this bridge? Okay. And this is something that I think the world government is building, or at least the powers that be, right? So, what's going on here? And who has this kind of foresight, right, to be building a bridge over the course of centuries? So, that seems very ripe for some sort of interesting reveal. Anyways, that's pretty much it with my thoughts on these two mini arcs. And you know what's funny is I legitimately thought, like, okay, maybe I'll just make a short, meaning like under 3 minutes long, just talking about these two arcs really quickly. And here we are, like 15 minutes deep. So thanks for bearing with me as always. I appreciate you guys, and especially for my One Piece people out there, do me a favor, hit the buttons, the like, the share, the comment. Let me know your thoughts, because that really helps me with, finding my new audience and breaking out of the niche that these platforms want to put me in. So I would appreciate that greatly. But as always, just thank you so much for watching.